What is crack, lads? So, in today's video, I just want to get a bit more specific with you and walk you through exactly how you can build more power as a GA player. There's a lot of talk around it, and coach is showing you the top three exercises to build power and the top one exercise to build power. But I just want to give you the methodology behind developing it, so then you know how to exactly to program it, and you won't be doing an exercise wondering, is this working or is it not working or what's the crack? So when explaining power, we need to first explain strength, as that is often a huge contributing factor. So I'll explain that, and then if you want to stick around to the end, so I'll show you then exactly how you can program it into your week and just become a lot more powerful. Okay, so let's get into it. Strength, first and foremost, as I said, is the ability of the neuromuscular system to produce force. And this sounds very technical and physicsy, but I'm going to break it down for you. So that is just force equals mass by acceleration, and that's measured in newtons. But strength is generally defined as the one repetition max. So this is the maximal amount of weight that can be lifted through a full range of motion with correct technique for an exercise like a bench press or a squat, something along them lines. But that's how we often think about it. But people often think that if they want to get more powerful, that they don't really need to be strong, they can just focus on power work. But that's not really the case, because improvements in muscular strength has also been related to greater rate of force development, power, jumping, sprinting, change of direction, all that good stuff. So typically you'll see that both weaker and younger athletes don't possess the required strength levels for, say, to express high power outputs and be really explosive. So that has, like, strength needs to be trained as well alongside this, and needs to be as like a foundational level there before then we can actually express that and be a more powerful player. So in these cases, like, simply increasing strength levels can give us a crossover to increase our power outputs as well. So if you're a younger athlete, if you're a weaker athlete, just by getting strong, you will see crossovers in increasing your power output here as well. So as I say, that's kind of the prerequisite, and I just want to clear that side of things up first and foremost before going into this. Okay, so as I said, onto the fun stuff. What is power? What is this holy grail that everyone talks about? Well, power, again, in physicsy point of view, it is just the product of force and velocity. So power equals force multiplied by velocity, and that is measured in watts. But in more practical terms, power is the ability to just rapidly express your strength. So the strength that you've built, it's just been able to express that very quickly. So something like a counter movement jump, if you take this for an example, it's an excellent test. This is one that we do with all our academy members at their baseline testing. And essentially, it requires the athlete to produce large forces in a relatively short period of time, like under zero point 0.3 seconds. Okay. So power does play massive roles. If you're a GA player, if you're any sort of team sport athlete, it plays a massive role in crucial elements of the game, like, say, fetching a high ball, kicking, breaking tackles, tackling itself. So a lot of the clutch moments are reliant on this characteristic. So it's very important that we develop it. And it's shown also to have strong relationships to other areas like sprinting, jumping, change of direction, throwing velocity. So if you become more powerful, oftentimes, like, you become more powerful in the gym, let's use that example, then hopefully you'll see a good transfer over to sprinting. You'll see your speed times going up. You'll see your jump height going up. Not directly, but you will see some crossover. You still need to practice them to get better at them as well. But it will have some positive correlations and relationships there. Okay, so before explaining how we can structure this into our week, I just want to give you, I suppose, a bird's eye view of the force velocity curve, and this will really hammer home the understanding, hopefully, for yourself. It might sound technical and fancy, but it's very straightforward, and this is something that not a lot of coaches will try and, I suppose, explain. They'll kind of just jump straight to, here's the 3 power exercises to do. But I want to give you the methodology behind this, so then you have the knowledge and you know exactly what to do, and you will be able to implement it for yourself. So hopefully this is helpful. But On the force velocity curve, if you imagine there's a graph, and I'll try and get one up on the screen here. One end of the curve is maximum force, and the other end then is maximum velocity. So as force increases, velocity will decrease, and vice versa. But let's break it down into the three, I suppose, key zones that we need to look at for this video. There's a lot more, but we'll look at just the three main ones. So we have max strength. That's, as I said, going to be your lifting heavy with lower speeds or lower velocities. And that'll be the likes of your heavy back squat. So you close enough to your failure in back squat, you're not going to be moving that at a rapid pace, I can imagine. Then on the other side of things, we have max speed, and that's going to be really higher speeds and higher velocities, but lower applied forces. So there's not going to be as much force applied. There's not going to be a heavy barbell on your back, because then you won't actually be able to perform that at really high velocity. But this will be the likes of your sprinting, you're running your reactive jumps, and then we will have finally power falling in the middle, okay, between them two, and that's a combination of the two. So you're going to see being able to produce force but do it in a very quick manner, and this is something like your Olympic lifts. I'll give you more examples on the power outputs now, or power exercises now, but generally for the majority of athletes, if you're an athlete listening, you're maybe in season, the goal will always be to produce as much velocity across any load in a given session. Even if you're working in max strength parameters, you should have that intent to move it with as much velocity and as much speed as possible. That's always going to be the, I suppose, goal for athletes whenever they're in the gym. Right, so on to the good stuff. How does this look in a practical sense? And I'll break it down into four simplified quadrants, so to say. So the first one is exercise order. So how are we actually ordering our session? So as I talked about before, what's the overall flow of our session here, and where are we going to put power exercise and power work? So you need to always prioritize power exercises early on in the workout, because the training demands of high neural activation and coordination, the amount that you need for to complete a power exercise. So you need to be really explosive. You need to be able to move it with high velocity, but still there's a weight on your back or a weight in your hands. So it takes a lot of coordination, and it takes a lot of neural activation, which is just activation of the neuromuscular system. So it's quite demanding. So you need to be fresh when hitting these exercises. So place them early on in your session. And also then, as I'll touch on later on in this, we will have to account for that with our rest periods and whatnot. But you can also use, in terms of exercise order, while they want to be early on in the session, you can also use methods such as complex training. And this is essentially pairing a heavy strength exercise of around 90% 1RM, and then into a power exercise of around 30 to 40%. So you perform a heavy back squat for 3 to 5 reps, and then you move straight into a box jump. So you just pair them together, and this works off post activation potentiation. And I don't want to get too technical, but essentially the first back squat exercise acts as a primer to then be able to express more power in the box jump or in the power exercise. So that can be a good method to use there as well. I use that with some of our athletes. Others, I just do power work early on in the session. Okay. So then exercise selection. The exercises that you choose should target explosive movements. Okay, so some great options are going to be the likes of your Olympic lifts, so your cleans, your snatches, all that good stuff. Loaded jumps, plyometrics, med ball throws, then for upper body explosiveness. So I really like, on the upper body side of things, say your landmine throws or your med ball throws. They're really good exercises for that upper body explosiveness, because a lot of people struggle with, like, they understand what to do for lower body, but what do I do for upper body? Then, so we've talked about exercise order, we've talked about exercise selection, and then we have volume and intensity. So how much volume and intensity should you be including of power work across the week? Generally, per session, you can do around 3 to 5 sets, and about 1 to 4 reps with that margin of intensity being around 30 to 60%. So imagine your 1 rep max is 100 kilos. Your power work should be within 30 kilos and 60 kilos. So you can load up the bar to around 30 to 60 kilos, and that will be within that power intensity range. And then the key thing, as I touched on briefly there previously, is the rest periods. You need to give yourself that full rest, generally 2 to 3 minutes, but this is very person dependent. So if you need more time, give yourself that more time. Like, you want to be going back into your next set of power fully refreshed and your target muscle groups not fatigued. So if you're going back into a heavy or into a loaded jump or a box squat jump, whatever it is, and your legs are gassed, then that's going to massively impact the actual power output that you're given in that set. So it's really important that you give yourself that adequate rest, and that's a really important point for yourself. Then overall frequency, generally 2 to 3 times per week is good. I have our guys including some form of direct power work most, if not all, sessions. So if they're doing 2 to 3 sessions per week, I will microdose it into each session. So early on in the session, as I said, with maybe after their activation and prehab work, I'll put in 1 to 2 power exercises. And we just need to ensure that across the week, that fatigue is not going to be a limiting factor. So if you're after having a heavy training session on the pitch on a Tuesday night, then maybe going in on Wednesday, your power outputs aren't going to be as high as they would have been, let's say, Monday, if you're after having the weekend off. So you have to account for all these different things. But generally, that's going to be the 4 simplified quadrants there of what you should be thinking about and how you should organize power into your week. Okay. So look, at hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully it wasn't too sciencey or technical or anything like that. But as I say, I just want to give you the methodology, because there's a lot of people just talking about do this exercise, but that doesn't help anybody because nobody understands why they're actually doing that exercise. Okay. So if you enjoyed it, I would love if you could subscribe to the channel, follow the page, everything like that. And if you have any other questions, just drop me a DM about the academy, about groundwork, any of them programs, just drop me a DM. I'd be more than happy to help. And yeah, hopefully you have a great day, and thanks for watching.